Welcome to another episode of Stress Test. We're so glad to be with you again. We're your hosts, Shane and Sue Schlesman. We're really excited, especially anytime we can have a local pastor with us from Richmond, Virginia, but also really excited because we love this pastor so much. He's a great, great friend. They built an amazing church called Motivation Church in Richmond, Virginia. Travis and Brittany Jones. And we had Brittany Jones on before, but we're so thankful to have Travis with us as well today. So welcome, Travis, to Stress Test.
What's up? It's so good to be here.
Yeah, man. So great to have you. We're so glad to have you. Travis, you're a national leader in the Assemblies of God with Church Multiplication Network, CMN, and you're a great church planner. You've been planning a church for the last 7 years in Richmond, making a huge difference. And you and Brittany known each other since high school. You're teenage sweethearts from Miami. Yes. Tell us a little bit about how you guys got together, a little bit about your family. Two amazing girls too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my wife Brittany and I, we met in Miami, Florida. We were both at a local Assemblies of God church called Upper Room Assembly of God, and her family had moved down from Chicago to Miami like during our junior year, and because her parents were the worship pastors of the church that I was at. But anyways, I saw her, and we kind of through a long time of prayer and fasting, the Lord gave me an opportunity. In fact, what's funny is that um, her parents saw me serving so hard in the church as a youth. Her parents forced her to go out on a date with me. So that's word to the wise. If you live wise and impress the parents, you might be in good favor. So
Yeah,
but yeah, we've been married. We've been married for a little bit now, for 15 years, and we have two daughters. Jalen is 10, and Jada is 10, and Jaylyn is 13, and they're just fabulous girls. They're involved in swimming, volleyball, and we are just kind of super busy Uber parents after work every single night. So
yeah.
I love it. So that had to have been like a little bit of strategy for you, right? Like, serve in front of the parents, get them on board first, right?
absolutely, it was a fine arts showcase night, and I wasn't supposed to do a short sermon, but her parents were there. I asked my youth pastor. I said, "Let me get a sermon in," because I knew they would impress them.
I
So
never heard that part
I
of it. That's awesome.
yeah. So I went on Google and I Googled like the first TD Jake sermon I saw, and I just took his sermon and preached it that night.
That
So
is
she really,
awesome.
yeah. So they really fell in love with TD Jake's younger version.
Man, they knew the
Absolutely.
bishop before you were the bishop. I love it. I love it. That is so
funny.
cool. And you've been preaching ever since. In fact, you travel all over the
Ever since.
country. Man, you've been preaching since a young age, traveling all over the country. Before you church planted, then you came to Virginia. What, 12 years ago now?
Yeah, about 12 years now, 12 years ago, I moved to Virginia. I was on staff at a church. So I was a youth pastor for about 6 years. And so yeah, it was a fun journey.
Wow. Wow. Well, man, the last 7 years, though, you built an amazing church and, you've gone through great seasons of growth. You've gone through some really hard times, and you know what this podcast is about. We talk to pastors all the time, like yourself, who are doing amazing things. And a lot of people think stress only comes in one season or the other, but you've been through some. Church planners might look at your church, in other words, and think, wow, he's got it great. But I know
Yeah,
you've been through some hard seasons, and some
sure.
of our greatest lessons come from some of those hard seasons. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those lessons and how they came to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say I just absolutely love you and Sue. You guys are just amazing. Just honestly, and not to say that because we're on a podcast, but just to watch your life and to watch your grit and the stress that you guys go through, have been through, and still go through is pretty inspiring to Brittany and I. And love this podcast. I think it's huge, big need in the kingdom of God And so, yeah, we started our church a year before COVID. So, I mean, I think that kind of can speak to
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
So we started our church, and yeah, we have, um, we started off strong, and we have always been the result of great community with the Assemblies of God, with CMN and with ARC. And yeah, we started our church with 400 people. And then obviously, like when
Wow.
you start a church, you go through like the Gideon revival. And so we started off with 400, and next Sunday we had a whopping 300, and the next Sunday after that we had 200, and we kept on dropping down. So I'm like, man, this is either a revival in reverse.
Revival in
So
reverse.
absolutely. And so yeah, we kind of dropped down to our lowest Sunday was 115 people. And I'll never forget that Sunday, me being so overwhelmed, just with me not being able to control a narrative, and just me even not knowing the 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 rhythm of just church planning and this of ministry. I think most of my stress has come because I wasn't aware of certain rhythms and seasons that God just takes every pastor on. I think sometimes
Mm.
you get in certain moments and situations where you are surprised and shocked by what you are experiencing, but
Mhm.
every pastor goes through those moments of Gideon revival. And so,
So true, man. That's
yeah,
good.
so yeah, we kind of, when we bottomed out, and then once we bottomed out, we kind of start to build back up pretty quickly after that. And God started to bless our church. 6 months in, we uh we acquired a permanent facility. We were portable for the first 6 months of our church, and we went through a $500,000 build out, which is really crazy with a church that's
Shoot.
only 6 months old.
Mm.
We was able to pay for the entire thing in cash, and God began to move in the church and move and move and move. And quickly, I became a slave to momentum and a slave to the growth,
Wow.
where I just wanted to uh I wanted to get there. I was looking at people on social media. I was looking at even Pastor Shane and Sue, look at what God's doing through their ministry. We ag one of the, obviously one of the legacy church in our city. And I just became like I said to myself, I never forget this. I said, when we get to 500, I'll be satisfied, God. And you get to 500, and like, oh no, when we get to 1,000, and it just, every season, I've prior to me having this moment of just knowing that I need to be healthy, I've always wanted to get and rush to the next season. And so,
Mm.
anyways, right before COVID happened, I got burnt out. I stopped dreaming about the church. I didn't dream anymore. Um, I I was going week to week with sermons.
Mm.
And anyone who knows me, I like to plan out my yearly sermons.
Yeah.
I kind of have a whole rhythm, and I just was going week to week. I wasn't excited about ministry anymore. I wasn't dreaming anymore. Um, I just didn't have that passion like I once had. I just got tired, and I got tired physically. I got tired of disappointments. I got tired of uh my own insecurity. And anyways, I just got tired. And so when I found myself in that place of being almost like kind of emotionally rock bottom, it was a moment where I had to change some things. And the first was my my expectations in ministry. It was just
Mm.
like, man, God, I need to change what I'm expecting, and putting these crazy pressures on myself. And so that was my first start to like this journey where I know I needed to be healthy as a pastor.
Wow. That is amazing.
I love what you said about slave to momentum, because I think that's the curse of success that people don't count on. We all know we can't live at the mountaintop, but that's what we all hope is going to happen, that you just continue to live in the successful moments. And that seems like that would be freedom, because there's not negative momentum happening. But can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by slave to momentum? How does performance and expectation
Mm.
infiltrate,
Yeah.
Right.
the positive seasons, the seasons of growth? How can they be hijacked by
Right.
that?
Yeah, I think I think even now, like our church is in a season of kind of extreme growth, and it's in those growth seasons where I think that we are challenged the most if we're gonna rely on God, or are we gonna believe that our growth is because of God or because of us?
Yeah,
Ooh,
And I don't know
yeah,
why
yeah.
every time I get there, we get to a momentum spot. I just think that it's because of my strategy, my leadership, I don't know, my preaching or whatever. And
Mhm.
I think that that's kind of what happened in that season where I became a slave to it. So like I had to keep it. I got to keep preaching great sermons.
Yeah,
I had to hit like home runs every single week. And so even then, it kind of even affected my preaching. So because I wasn't giving people practical next step. I was just trying to make the latest Instagram
yeah,
reel and blow up.
yeah.
And so for me, it's just I think that sometimes momentum can confuse you to think that it's because of you
Mhm.
and not in spite of you. Um,
Mhm.
and one of the things that I just always got to remind ourselves, in fact, we got a new sign as we walk into our backstage, and I pretty much what we say to anyone who goes on our stage is like, hey, the what you're about to experience is a move of God, not a move of
Mm.
you. And
Awesome.
so for me, I just gotta remind myself of that I mean, I'm just a little tool that God is using with his building his church.
wow.
Do you find that other church planters struggle, or maybe, I mean, church planting is your expertise area, but you hobnob with all kinds of pastors. Um, if there's a common thread of confusion over work and a healthy leading and how it intersects with, success and performance and so forth, is all of this kind of a
Yeah,
big mess for
it's a
everybody?
fine line. It is such a fine line to cross over to like grind and hustle. Like we know that Joshua wasn't sleeping the night before he crossed
Yeah.
the Jordan. It wasn't like a full 8 hour night of sleep that he just slept in. No, he was nervous. There's a grind to it. There's a loss of sleep whenever you're crossing over and you're
Mhm.
moving and you're advancing God's kingdom. So obviously there's a fine line between that and then living unhealthy,
Mhm.
uh, and living to trying to perform. And obviously I think it starts with your heart. I think it starts with like uh having rhythms, and I talked to Pastor Shane about this before, but that's when I started to really institute rhythms in my life where I have a morning rhythm, I have a night rhythm. Like I'm in
Mhm.
bed pretty early. Like when people text me super late, like I don't answer them to like
I don't know who that
super
is.
early in
I
the
don't know who
morning.
that is.
Uh,
Yeah. Who
yeah,
texts you
yeah.
late
So
at
like
night?
people,
Don't say.
Yeah,
I
you
mean, a
need
lot
to
of people text
really
me all the time.
help Shane with his rhythms. Maybe you could
Yeah, yeah,
develop
Hey,
a
yeah,
man,
yeah,
I
rhythm
yeah.
got,
for him.
hey, rhythms.
He
Let's
keeps me
let's
up.
make sure it's clear.
Our rhythms
Travis is about to
clash.
share some great rhythms with us.
Uh,
You got to have some rhythms, but rhythms are rhythms, so they can be shifted.
A lack of
You don't
rhythm
have to
is
They
be.
not
can
a
be
rhythm,
shifted,
though.
All right.
and it's
Let
for you
Pastor Travis.
specifically. So, so anyways, I had to come up with nightly rhythms, and so part of my nightly rhythm is that at 8:30, 8:45 ish,
Mm,
shut my phone off. I read and I go to bed. I go to bed pretty early. I am an early riser, so from 4:30 to 6:30. I have an app on my phone that blocks off social media because that typically is my most vulnerable time where I'm comparing myself to others.
Yeah.
And so there's an app that literally blocks me off. I can't go on social media on Sundays after church because we can have a great moment and then I can look at what God's doing in somebody else's church and I kind of get overwhelmed. I don't look on social media on Mondays.
Mhm.
Mondays is my most vulnerable time. And so I try to just lock in and sermon prep and
Mhm.
just love people on Mondays. But like I just started to live out rhythms. And here's when I know that I'm crossing over from hard work and advancing God's kingdom to performance and living unhealthy is when I get out of rhythm.
Mm.
So
mm,
my rhythm is my alert, like alert, 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 alert. Like
Mhm.
if you're not, if you don't got your night rhythms, your morning rhythms, I have a weekly rhythm.
Mhm.
I'm off every Friday. It's my Sabbath day. Uh, if I kind of move out of my rhythms, then I'm in trouble. So this is why like I fight so hard for it. Like even when Pastor Shane invites me to play golf outside of Friday, sometimes they would switch the golf days up. And I'm like, but for me, I just have my rhythm where it's just Friday's my day,
Right.
and I'm off every Friday. Um, so that's my Sabbath day. So for me, if I have my weekly, my monthly, and my yearly rhythms, it's really a sign that I'm healthy. But as soon as I get out of rhythm, which I do often, it is an alert to my mentors, to my pastors, to my overseers that hey, he is not healthy. He's crossed over to a place of unhealthy.
All right, so I know it's your turn, but I have to ask a follow-up
You
question.
already went way
I know,
past. my turn.
I know, but
You keep going. You're rolling.
no, but he just went on the record saying that golfing is a Friday thing. And I know for a fact that you guys golf regularly on Saturday and Monday. So I want to know
Saturday? What?
if you're golfing on a Saturday or Monday, does that mean you're upsetting your rhythm?
Okay,
Rodney's
so
not here to
I
challenge.
never, I hardly ever do Saturday golf because of
Oh,
kids'
okay, so it's
sports.
just him.
Uh,
Okay.
Me?
yeah.
What
So
is going
yeah,
on?
I
I almost
I'm
never
about to
play
say
golf on a Saturday.
We do
I'm
a
about to
threat.
say I've never
Trav,
known
you know
Shane to
I
golf
don't
on a
play golf
Saturday
on
either.
Saturdays,
That's
man.
what, yeah.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
know. I've never known
I
Shane
know
to
what
do
she
it on
doing to
Saturday,
me
but
right now.
Monday.
okay. So my
So
mistake.
for me, my Monday rhythm is I work on my sermon, and my gift to myself, if I'm done with, I have a leadership meeting that I work on my outline, and if
Right.
I finish my outline before a certain time, my gift to myself is 9 holes of golf. That's my gift.
Ah, well, that's good.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, your
So,
turn, babe.
I love it.
um,
Man, I learned so much from you and our friendship. In fact, I think we started hanging out regularly during that COVID season and some of the hard
yeah.
times, and I've watched you in both the hard times and the growth times. And you're such a person of discipline. That's why I love that you're helping our church planners around the country now
Mhm.
through CMN. But you've had to notice this trend showing up a lot in the church planners you're helping. How are you helping them pick up these rhythms? Because it is a little bit unique. Like we just said, I'm a night person, you're a morning person.
Right, yeah.
I need Mondays more than Fridays. How do you help church planners find these rhythms in a career they've chosen that is so demanding and so 24/7? How are you doing that?
Yeah, I think that obviously, we're helping them find out how they're designed. There's some people, I mean, and when I say rhythms, it's honestly less about, you know, morning or night person, morning person. It's more about guardrails to your emotional soul, you
Mhm.
know. And so for me, that's kind of
Good.
what it is. And so I have some passive friends who they're off on Mondays instead of Fridays because they just cannot process anything on Monday. For me, when I first started our church plant, that used to be the case. I was on Mondays, but the problem is when your Sabbath day is on your most tired day, then my wife doesn't get the best version of me, on our off days. So I moved it to Friday because I'm not that disappointed yet with Sunday numbers. So I'm still a little bit hopeful on Friday. I still got a little more hope on Friday.
Mhm.
Maybe you could do this on this Sunday. Um, but yeah, I think it's just kind of figuring out your emotional self. But I tell you what. I just think that when we travel and we help out church planners, it is shocking to see how many church planners don't realize that one of the most important things of life in general outside of church planning is being loved by God.
Mm.
I mean, that's why he created the world.
Mhm.
That's why he made us. I mean, it was he created us because he wanted a family. Like he wanted, like he didn't want to just exist by himself. So he made us so that he can love us.
Mm.
And it's so interesting how many of our church planners associate their love, that God's love for them,
Mhm.
off of the success of their church plants.
Mhm.
And we're got planners launching in rural areas that has 500 people in a city, and they just might have two people. Well, that's a great percentage. Um, or maybe in an urban context where it's just really hard, or maybe in the Northeast, and so for us, one of the markers of health that we're giving to church planners, and even coming up with rhythms, is come up with whatever rhythm that works for you, so that you can feel loved by God.
Mhm.
And in turn, you can love him back, and you can love others and love his church and be healthy. But it's so interesting to note that if we can solve one thing as a network at CMN, it would be for that every planter to know that they're loved by God and they're approved by God,
Mhm.
way beyond the numbers or the success of their church. It will be a game changer. It will be a revolution within our movement.
Mm. Wow.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, you stole one of mine, I'm gonna steal one of yours. You have great values as a church. So I want to switch gears into what this looks like in your church for your staff,
Yeah,
all those on your team that are following you, because I love you. I love your values, honor, humble, hustle, hungry, and healthy. So let's just
yeah.
talk about healthy. What does that look like for you as you lead your church staff? How do you do that?
Yeah, so for me, like, I recognize that none of my staff will be here forever.
Mm,
Mm.
And so none of them will be here forever. And I recognize that I want to be in the church forever. So like they're on their way to their next church or next assignment that God has on them.
Mhm.
We're not the type of church where people are gonna be long standing staff members. We're aggressive, we're fast paced, it's moving. So I get that. And so I just wanted that their stop here at Motivation, that they got healthy.
Mm.
Uh, and so part of the metrics of health is the leader healthy, is the ministry healthy, is what you're doing healthy. Sometimes, I even had some conversations about, we got, big services coming up like Easter and some other big services coming up. And our church was like, hey, let's go to 4 services. I'm like, I mean, could we pull off 4 services? Probably could. Uh, would our numbers go up? Probably will. Will we break some barriers that we want to? We probably will if we go to 4 services. But would it be healthy? And I asked the question. I asked the staff, say, but would it be healthy? Would the
Mm.
volunteers be used? Would they feel used and pushed? How would they feel? No, it won't be
Mm.
healthy. Well, we don't do it
wow, that's good.
because for me, I value health over growth.
Mhm.
And so for me, and honestly, what you see a lot around our country is that some of these, quote unquote, thriving churches, they're people tired. They
Yeah.
run through people, they run through staff, um, and for the sake of growth. And for me, I just don't rather, I rather not do that. And so I think it's a value for ministries,
Mm.
it's a value for our staff, and value for people around here that we're just healthy, that we just do things in a healthy way. And so obviously, our entire staff is off on Fridays. We have something called Slack and Monday.com. Monday.com is our task management. So we're pretty heavy on Monday.com, Monday through Thursday. But on Friday, it is rest. It is get your mind off stuff, and so we have a policy that all of the spouses of our staff members, they have access to a private email account that no one on our staff knows about. Well, they know about it, they don't know the exact email. And so their spouses can email this particular private email all their grievances. So we just recently had a wife email us in that email and says, hey, he's working late at night. And I didn't know it. I didn't know it.
Mhm.
We're in a busy season. So I get it. And so I talked to the leader and I was like, hey, how many nights you're here late? I'm here late 3 nights. What's the rule? Only 2 nights. So you're breaking the rule. You're not healthy.
Mm,
So go
Mhm.
home. Like, it'll get done, figure out how to get it done. If you can't get it done in 8 hours of the day, let's figure out how you spend your time. Look at your time
Mhm.
management. Are you eating lunch out every day? So, anyways, all that to say is that it's a huge value, and we evaluate all families, and we wanted our leaders to be healthy.
That's so great.
Man, that's so good, dude.
Yeah, you're way too much younger than us for us to be constantly learning
Oh,
from
I
you,
know.
but that's
I'm
what
proud of you,
happens.
man. That's like, that's
It's,
incredible leadership.
that's
So great.
really, that's really a great tangible way to measure it, because we all say we want to be healthier and want to work less hours, but then there's a breakdown in how to actually stay accountable and
Yeah.
intercede for
Well,
people.
Monday.com, we track our hours now. So now we're at a point where they have to clock in now. Because in ministry, there's no clock in and clock out.
Yeah.
So what happens is that you're always clocked in, and as a
Mhm.
result, your brain like doesn't really have the function. There's a lot
Yeah, it
of
doesn't
analysis
stop.
when it comes to like brain health,
Mhm.
and part of it is that pastors just don't know how to clock out. And so we now have um every morning when people start working for Motivation Church on Monday.com, I'm clocked in.
Mhm.
And when you're clocked out, you clocked out. And if I see an email sent, because I have access to all the Google accounts, so I can look at every email sent, every Slack sent, every Monday.com sent, a text message sent. I see anything outside that clock out time, like I'm gonna
Mm.
call it out because you're not healthy and you're
Mhm.
not efficient. If you can't get the work done in the daytime and you're
Mhm.
just not efficient, you need to be helped with your calendar.
Mm.
Mhm.
I love that accountability. You've been so great about that in your own life. I know you're helping other pastors have that accountability around them, and now for your staff. I think that's so great. Thank you. We use Clockify, and you and I have talked about that before. We put up in our staff meeting, we put those literally for everybody to see, and we talk
Yeah,
about it. And I think if churches begin to talk about this health and value health over growth, like you said, that's going to be so powerful. Thank you for your
yeah,
leadership.
Yeah, there's a paradigm shift in there too, away from workaholism, celebrating the overworking. But anyway,
yeah.
so along the line of health, I wanted to bring up your family because we love your wife and your kids, and
Mhm.
know that you prioritize that. Can you talk about maybe some practical things that you put into place also at home to make sure that they're getting your best time? I mean, you mentioned the Sabbath. I think that's fantastic. How you're prioritizing family over church, legit doing it rather
Yeah,
than just, we all value family over
Sure.
church,
Yeah.
but then we work 80 hours. So,
sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, obviously, um, that's my legacy. I'll be more known for my parenting and my marriage than I am for my church. So I
mhm,
do recognize that. Like, as cool as this is, I'll be recognized for that. But uh, yeah. So for me, I do travel a lot. There is a lot of travel demand with some of the positions I have, and so I was telling you all before the podcast started that there's a rule that Focus on the Family came up with that you are considered an absent dad if you travel, if you're gone, if you're if you are away from your kids more than 37 nights a week. I mean a year. So
Yeah.
37 nights a year. So for me, like so for example, in a few weeks I gotta go to West Palm Beach for a conference. Uh and I know I was getting close to that number looking at my future trips I have coming up. And so I'm bringing my kids with me just so that I can meet the number.
You're like, that don't count. That don't count. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't count if they're with you. So,
That's good. That's
uh,
good.
but anyways, so I mean, it's just stuff like that we just put in place those rules, and so that became a law in our house. Just you're not going more than 37 nights. It's just a rule. And for me, I'm only gone away from my home 2 nights a week, and that's at most. Most time it's just one night a week. And then the rest of the time, I just don't miss games. My kids are in the season right now; they're in sports, and so I don't miss games. And another rule I have, I want to pick up my kids from school at least 3 days out of the week. I just want to be. I don't know. I just have a rule in my head. I feel like the dad should be the one that pick up the kids most. And then I'm just super intentional about spending time with my kids, devotions, praying with them. You know, I got two girls, and just hearing their emotions out. having them try new things. And so our family, as a family, we have scripture memory as a family. So we do memorize scripture together. So that kind of combines, it gets us kind of together and connected in that way. We play a game. We have a game night 3 times a week where we play some type of game, Sorry or Scrabble or something like that. So three nights a week we have a game night. And so those are just rhythms that we have in place that they're just laws. They're just kind of it is what it is. It is kind of like, we eat dinner pretty early as a family. So I normally eat around, 4:30, 5 o'clock-ish. Um, and we just kind of have those certain rhythms in place.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. So do you trash talk in your game night as much as you do on the golf course? Because
Oh, absolutely. It is brutal. If you see some of the stuff that we say, I mean, when I say it's brutal, it is brutal. And
I love it. Knock down, throw down,
yes, absolutely.
game night. Hey, I want to ask you this question, Travis, because you're such a disciplined person. For a lot of pastors watching right now, or especially those younger pastors who would be looking up to you and saying, I want to be Travis Jones. They might hear all this discipline, all this thing, and man, he's got it all together. But I know there's seasons of times when you start to run in the red. How do you restore that? How do you restore these habits when they get out of sync? Because I think it'd be helpful for you to share a little bit about how when you go off the rails, how you get back on them. How do you get back to these healthy habits? Does Brittany call you out on that? Is that the
Sure.
start? And then what does it look like after that?
Well, I get called out by my wife every day. So
Yeah, well, I know she's not shy about it. That's good.
I think for me, the biggest thing, number one, let me just kind of go back. I am disciplined because I need it, because I'm not good. Like I'm squirrely in my mind. I can get distracted real quick. So I actually need discipline, or I'm just a terrible leader. So some people are just don't need it. I actually need it. So I need those guardrails in my life. So let's just kind of set the record straight that I don't have it all together. I'm disciplined because I don't have it all together. Um, yeah, I think for me, when people get into the red and they get how do you get back on? Uh, so for me, I've always communicated my stuff, like my disciplines, right? So even like Shane, like you and I are close. Like you are even start to sense where I'm like, oh, okay, he's golfing. Like I even told you, I think I
Yeah,
told you something about when to be on alert when I'm not healthy.
yeah.
And I tell people that. And so my biggest attribute of who I am, I'm really accountable. Like
Mhm.
I have if I have a strength, it won't be like great leadership or great communication and all that stuff. But I think for me, my strength is that I am accountable. So I let everyone know my stuff. And so I got two people that Pastor Sean, he has access to my iCloud account. So he can go and check in every text message. He sees my Delta app, so which he sees my travel.
Mhm.
He sees my email, and he knows all my travel. He even has access to my bank account. And so even recently, we were talking, and we were talking about my retirement. And he's like, "Hey, Travis, you're not being aggressive enough about your retirement." I'm like, "How do you know that?" Like, and he's all up in my stuff,
Wow,
like
wow.
this is not good at all. Like, it's so annoying, to be honest with you.
Wow.
But I think that whenever I get into the red, I have a network of people that can pull me back real quick. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, obviously people like you, Shane, my overseers, they can pull me back. They know my travel schedule. They know my rhythms. They know where I'm at. Obviously my wife. But who's been keeping me from the red lately or calling me out when I'm in the red is my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Because I'm so like I'm kind of rhythmatic in a way where I do this, I do that. And when I'm staying up late with my computer, I got my computer out. My oldest are coming, hey dad, remember we shut it down at 8. You know, We shut it
Like,
down at
this is
8.
one thing. This is one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. I got one more thing. It's Easter season. We gotta get ready,
It's
whatever. And hey, remember that? We shut it down at 8. Shut it down at 8. So, anyways, I think that the more you tell your world that
Yeah.
you live in about your rhythms, accountability, goals, I think that they're able to help you out. So,
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about parenting is that it's a mirror to what's actually going on in your life. And
yeah.
we have locked down on so many principles because we were teaching our kids this. And
Mhm.
so, about how to forgive, about,
Right.
health, like you're talking about,
That's
like,
good.
morning routines, evening routines, serving, church routines, serving, being compassionate. It's not just modeling it, it's actually sticking to the plan.
Right.
And yeah, they call us on it, but that's good too, because it's reinforcing the
So good.
value that they've
Yes.
learned. And they're saying,
Yeah.
I value this. I see the value in this. So
Right.
that's amazing. So I have to ask Travis, about your parents and your upbringing. Were they like, does all of this come naturally? Like the discipline and the spiritual rhythms and the serving and the speaking and like your life? Is it a lot of it because of the way that you were brought up, or is it something that you learned or trained
Uh,
yourself, or a combo?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of dysfunction from my childhood, and so I didn't really have a close relationship with my dad growing up. He fought in Desert Storm as a Marine, came back with post-traumatic stress syndrome, so did drugs. So I didn't really have a relationship with him, but he was a Marine, and the little interaction I did have with him, he was full Marine. He retired Marine.
Full on.
My mom was a Marine. She retired Marine. And then when she retired Marine, she got into working for the federal government as an FBI agent. So I grew up in a home where it was tight. They ran tight ships. So it was discipline. It was you make your bed. So part of like discipline, whatever, is kind of ingrained in me a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you make your bed, you get up, you iron your clothes. I remember growing up, we had to iron our clothes with starch.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Every
with the
Sunday.
spray starch.
Yeah, I used to have, I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
to do
yeah,
his shirts with spray starch.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Every Sunday night we had to do that. So anyways, I just remember just, going through all that. And so anyways, because of that, I have discipline, but I am emotionally kind of undeveloped because there just wasn't a lot of affection growing up. And so just it plays out in the dysfunctional way in my marriage and even in my pastoring. I just don't, you know, sometimes I don't care and I need to care. So
That's wow. That's such great
Well,
self-awareness, man.
that's health. Yeah, is
It's
being
healthy.
self-aware. And I think we all do ourselves a disservice when we're not willing to dig out, why do I behave the way that I behave? Why do I keep having
right,
the same issues, the same types of
right,
issues with multiple different kinds of people? Who's the common denominator in my problems?
Yeah.
right.
It's
Yeah,
me. So
yeah.
let me dig a little bit and find out how to fix that. That's good.
I love
Yep,
that.
yep, yep.
I love the way you've leaned into what the great things that your family gave you and
Mhm.
then you bring that security and the love of God there too. I'm wondering, you know, a lot of people talk about, hey, if I wouldn't do anything different, I never understood that because I go back and look at a whole bunch of things I would do
Sure.
different, I would grow in, but so I know it's very idealistic question, okay, but if you could go back and you could talk to young Travis, okay, preaching
Yeah.
those sermons and doing all those things, what would be some of the things that you would firm up? And then what would be some of the things that you would say, don't get bothered with that, get that out, change that.
Mhm.
Yeah. The first is if I was talking to young Travis, I would say play golf so you can be better than Shane at this point of your life. So
That's not that hard.
man, I wish I started playing golf
Yes,
much earlier. Gosh,
you
if I
need
started
better
playing golf
Yeah,
as a
goals.
he would go
teenager, I'd be
back and
so
start golf earlier too.
That's good. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
That's the best answer
yeah.
I've heard
So
in a
I'll start
while.
playing
That's
golf. Yeah. So people ask me, what would you do different as a child? Like if you go back, start playing golf. I think that for me, if I can go back, man, I wish that I didn't realize. I wish that I would tell myself that growth is not a race. It's
Ah,
just not a
okay.
race.
Mm,
And I feel like I've been in a rat race for a lot and I miss a lot. I missed a lot.
Mm,
And I miss experiences, I miss relationships. Um,
mm,
and I just love this season of my life where I have
mm,
friends. I have my Friday rhythms, I have my Friday friends,
mm,
I go on golf trip with friends and I could be just locked in. I know pastors that they are thriving much more than motivation, but man, they're lonely.
mm,
Um, they're just inside of and I just wish that I just would have always understood that, man, growth is not a race. Take your time,
mm,
walk at the pace that God has you in, and enjoy the moments, enjoy the relationships because they're just few and far between. And so the moments pass by real fast. And so, um, but
mhm.
yeah, so that's why I would go back and change myself. And just like, man, I just wish I would slow down. So you, pastor, first couple of years at that church plant, man, I was like, man, we got to get here. We got to get here. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I would say that growth is not a race.
wow,
That's really good.
so good, man. What a powerful way to kind of bring this to a conclusion. And I would ask you, I know a lot of folks, you travel a lot, you do a lot of things. Tell people how they can follow you, how they can keep up with you, whether it be social media or through Motivation Church, so we can watch and maybe get connected anyway like that.
Yeah, so yeah, you can follow us on social media. It's called Motivation Church RVA. If you want to see what I'm doing, you could probably go there more than my personal page. And yeah, so we are a diverse church in the city of Richmond, and God's doing a great work and great thing. And we're in the middle of a great season, and you get to catch a little glimpse of that on our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube accounts, Motivation Church RVA.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Travis. As always, I'm so impressed with you, so amazed of how God's using you, and I can't wait to see what God's got for you, not just for you, but for the city of Richmond and for CMN and for all the things that you have your hands in that God's put you for
Mhm.
such a time as this. Hey,
Mhm.
so we end our podcast a little unusually maybe than some other ones perhaps. We love to pray for our guests. So I know it's weird to do recorded, and if you're watching or driving down the road and listening right now, would you just take a moment and would you pray with us? Uh, and Sue's going to lead us, so I give her that's her 10-second heads up.
Mm.
But would you just pray as Sue leads us over Travis and Brittany, over Motivation Church, over their family right now?
Lord God, we love you so much. We are in awe of your goodness to us, that you involve us in ministry. I thank you so much for Travis, for Brittany and the girls, for Motivation Church, and all that they are investing in the kingdom. I pray for your blessing and your protection over them. I pray for health and longevity in ministry. And we thank you for all that you're doing there. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Amen. Well, thank you for being with us, Travis.
Thanks, Trav.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Wow, love Travis Jones.
Yeah, that
So
was great.
thankful for him, and he and Brittany being in our lives has been really special last few years, especially spending so much more time with them last few years. But yeah, so man, I got so many things. I'll start with you.
I took a ton of notes. So I thought the first really amazing and profound thing, especially for a church planter, a successful church planter to say, is that he was a slave to momentum and growth, which I think that's true for anybody in ministry. Even if they're not successful, you're a slave to trying to grow,
Yeah.
because that's how everybody measures whether or not you're successful or spiritual or God's using your,
Yeah.
however. So I think recognizing the entrapment that handles when you operate in a performance carrying the load kind of leadership is really insightful. He said, when we get to 500, I'll be satisfied. And I think that's true for all of us in whatever area of life we're in. If I only had this, I'll be happy. And I
And then
think
you keep moving the marker.
right.
yeah.
I think it's wise to point out that it happens for pastors and ministers that we're never satisfied. And that's a really good red flag that we're carrying the weight of the work rather than letting God carry. We're not carrying
yeah.
his yoke. We're carrying
good.
our own yoke.
Yeah.
Because if it's his work and he's doing it his way, then all of those benchmarks get alleviated.
Yeah.
I don't have to be done at a certain time. I just have to be loved by him.
Yeah, I mean that's
That's good.
what I hit too. Was the end at the where he
The end.
really talked about growth. Again, his advice to himself: growth is not a race. That if we're really growing, let's put the right growth indicators, the same things that heaven measures. We talk about that at church. What does heaven measure? What kind of growth does heaven measure? But that's in our lives too, and that whole security of the fact that he said he would set it to every single church planner. I also wrote that down. That if you were secure in God's love for you, and that was your security, not your church, not how big it was or how great it was going or what the markers were around you or how you were recognized or who asked you to speak, but actually by how much you were loved by God, and that the love of God in your life is bigger than
sufficient.
your church and bigger than even your calling. That was very powerful. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. Hopefully everyone will be.
Yeah, that was really, really good.
Yeah. Well, thank you to Travis Jones for joining us. We have interviewed great leaders on here every time, and I hope you'll stay with us on the journey. But we have another way for you to stay with us coming up soon. In fact, it releases April 1st, and it's our very first book we've written together called Death by Pastoring, Finding the Heartbeat of a Healthy Leader. And so we got advanced copies. That was exciting.
Yeah, we examine really some of the things that we talk about on the podcast, but what God says about our work and our health and the markers for unhealthy rhythms, how to rest versus restoration, expectations, performance, all of those topics.
And we hope, if you've been watching this podcast for a while, you probably have heard my story, but our story was a wake-up call over 2 years ago, almost dying from a stress-induced heart attack. We've been on a journey ever since to find a new way to lead, a new way to work, and rest and restore with the Lord while we do it. So it's just where we are today. I want to give you a snapshot of that. It's the beginning of a great conversation. So I hope you can go on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can go into any platform and pre-order that. We'd love for you to join us. Also, if you want to join us on this journey and get some great info, at least on a regular basis, a newsletter, text the word stress to 833-204-2158. That's 833-204-2158. We'd love for you to go with us on the journey. As always, subscribe on our YouTube channel. Listen to each one of the episodes that come out on any of the streaming platforms. And we'll see you next time on Stress Test.